Welcome to the Heartland Crime Stoppers Show. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Today we're up in Polk City at the Polk Correctional Institute talking to Warden John DeBell. Warden, so glad to have you on the show today.
I appreciate you coming.
Now tell us a little bit about the Correctional Institute here. What are you doing? How large is it? And all the good facts.
We have pretty close to 1,700 offenders separated out among 5 different units. We've got a main unit here in Polk City with an annexed work camp that's on the property as well. But we have 3 satellite units, work release centers that are located in Bartow, and 1 in St. Pete and 1 in Largo, totaling about 1,700. Those that are out in the satellites are, those are preparing for release, close, working out in the community, and getting ready to go home, end of sentence.
Now I know we were talking earlier about, actually you're from Biloxi, Mississippi, an Air Force brat, and moved around quite a bit.
Yes, sir. Dad drug us around the planet pretty much. I think 5 different countries, half a dozen different states, and we were pretty mobile. So, but I'm a Gulf Coast guy.
Absolutely. Now I understand also that you this wasn't your initial career, corrections.
No, sir. Find it hard to believe, but I actually was managing restaurants, and I had a part-time individual that was working for me who said, hey, you ought to come check out the prison. I don't know that everybody wakes up in the morning one day and thinks that they're going to go work for the prison system, but 29 years later, here we are.
Now, we were talking also about, people think of prison just like they do the cop shows. They see some of the prison shows and they kind of have a preconceived notion. But there's a lot of working parts and different units within the system. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The prison system and what you don't see inside defense is kind of I like to say that it's a reflection of what's going on outside defense. It's a self-operated city within a city per se, but it's got, like you said, it's got a lot of moving parts. We've got a security contingent that I've got an assistant warden of operations who's primarily responsibility is the security aspect and all the uniform staff that we have. Then I've got an assistant warden that's responsible primarily for the program side of the house, which is the classification piece and education and chaplaincy and those things opposite of what security does. And to do that, it's kind of a well-balanced attack. Again, 1,700 offenders, and we've got a goal to produce a product better than what came in the gate.
It's interesting. I think you had made the statement that they're here as punishment, obviously, for what has occurred, but they're not here to be punished.
Absolutely. That is a dedicated mindset that we try to impart on staff from the moment that we hire them to the moment that they're walking the compound, interacting with the offenders, and that is that these men and women around the state are here for punishment. We're not here to punish them. So there's a direct relationship between the way that we interact and we communicate and the positive effect, because again, our goal is to produce a better product than what we received in the gate.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the old adage that you treat people how you like to be treated, that is still adage is very important inside a facility like this as well. Absolutely.
I mean, with a half ounce of respect and a little bit of genuineness, you'll be amazed at what you get. But I've tried to impart on staff that if you can interact with these guys and these ladies and you tell them, you act like a man, I'll treat you like a man. But if you act like something different, then we have the measures that we need to do to make sure that we're running a safe and orderly and humane institution on a daily basis.
Yeah, we had talked earlier also about people think that prisoners don't have any rights, but they do have a number of rights.
Absolutely. I mean, again, they're here for punishment. We're not here to punish them, but everything that happens inside the gate, again, they're here, getting education. They're here getting vocational training, and they've got an element of rights. They've got rights to be heard with regards to the disciplinary process. You got violations of the rules of prohibited conduct in here. We've got a due process that almost mirrors everything that happens out in a courtroom outside. So the rights are there. Grievance process, it's all in play.
Now, one of the important functions, obviously, of an institution like this is for a successful release once their term has been served. Sure. And it was interesting, I think you had said that coming to a neighborhood near you, I think is how you had placed it.
When you have upwards of close to 85 to 87% of these guys are going to be released, you have to have an understanding that they're coming to a neighborhood near you. And again, if we're producing a better product and if we're modeling appropriate behavior and we're doing the things we need to do to restore these guys to human beings back out in the community, it comes with an understanding that they're going to be standing next to you in Walmart and waiting on you in Steak and Shake, and their kids are going to be going to school with your kids. And, you know, again, conditions impact behavior. So that if we can get staff to understand that the way that they interact in here, you know, they need to be an agent of change. Because if they're an agent of change, it's going to come out in the way that you posture and that you interact and you discipline. Everything should be a bit about rehabilitation and change and restoring somebody back to where they came from.
And also that saves the taxpayers money, because then if they're successful in reentry, then that means they're not back in here, you know, having to be, you know, cared for by the state.
Absolutely. We've got an obligation to, you know, to do good programming. You know, we do pretty good integrated assessments right up front. Find out what you need. Find out, you know, what you're bringing to the table, education level, skill set level, whatever, and try to develop a plan for these guys so that we can add to it and they can go out and continue to be productive. Some of them come in with a deficit, so we try to boost that up, whether it be acquisition of, you know, basic literacy or you know, getting that GED that they never accomplished prior to that. Those are the things that are going to open doors and make people be successful when they go home.
And that is the bottom line, that is your goal, just to make sure
Absolutely.
these people get back in society and they change their ways, and then the mistakes that they had made.
Sure.
You had talked about the numbering system that I found very interesting when somebody comes in. Tell us about that, if you will.
You know, the DC number system, when an offender comes to us from the county, again, you got to understand that you got to have a sentence of 366 days or more to come to state. Otherwise, you're with the county. But you get a 6-digit number, and if you go out and by some unfortunate circumstance you end up back in, having reoffended, you have the same 6-digit number, but this time you'll have a letter in front of it. So that A offender and that B offender are 1 and 2 times down. It's a little disheartening sometimes to look through the population, and sometimes you'll see those letters further on down the alphabet, and there's 2 schools of thought of that, and that is this a better place than where they came from, or have we done something wrong? So I think that we're constantly in a state of trying to improve our programming and our vocational certifications and those things to kind of put in that tool bag and increase an offender's skill set so they can go home and stay home.
Yeah, it's you certainly, as the old adage that the idle hands, you know, can result in mischief. There's a number of things that you have for the population here. Talking about, you know, of course, the GED and education, but you also have a vocational program and some vocational partners. Can you tell us about those?
We have a pretty significant vocational program with Pride and Toys for Tots, and you know, every institution in the state, for the most part, has a Pride industry that can teach that soft set of skills that are going to go out there and they're going to be make that individual marketable when they go home. But it goes beyond the vocational. We have some very, very significant partnerships with the community partners, both inside, because if we just have the fence up and there's no hand holding between us and the community, and there's not a relationship between us and the community partners, that transition is cold when they walk out. They don't have anything to go to. So, you know, we've got significant relations with Career Source and Ready to Work and some community partners that are coming in here and fostering relationships with these offenders so that they know that they've got something to go to and a relationship they can build on when they get out.
We'll be back to talk to Warden DeBell in just a few moments, but first we're going to take a look at some of our unsolved cases.
On Wednesday, April 24th, 2019 at 1:40 p.m., 2 suspects kicked in the door at a residence on Dillon Street in Winter Haven and robbed the victims at gunpoint. A red Hyundai Sonata was caught on surveillance video at the time of the home invasion, and witnesses said 2 black males were in the vehicle. Suspect number 1 was a black male, 20 to 28 years old, 5'6", medium build. He wore a Haitian flag bandana over his face and was armed with a chrome and black semi-automatic handgun with an extended magazine. Suspect number 2, a black male, 20 to 28 years old, 5'6", medium build, with a green bandana covering his face and armed with a black semi-automatic handgun. On April 23rd at approximately 6:50 a.m., a 74-year-old woman was inside of her 6th Street Northeast home when 2 black males forced their way inside. The pair ransacked the home, removing valuables, and then fled. Do you know who was involved in this robbery that occurred at 4:13 a.m. Tuesday, April 23rd at the Circle K convenience store, 3100 North Galloway Road in Lakeland? Both of them are armed with long guns, wore gloves, and had their faces covered. While the woman stole items from the shelves, the man confronted the 2 store employees and stole cash. Neither one of the employees were injured, and the suspects made their getaway on foot. On April 16th, this suspect entered the Kangaroo Express located at 2100 Memorial Boulevard West and removed merchandise without attempting to pay for it. On April 17th at approximately 12:29 p.m., this suspect entered the King Liquor Store at 1124 6th Street Northwest in Winter Haven, selected merchandise, and walked to the store register to pay for his selected items. He pulled out a stack of approximately $2,100 bills and attempted to purchase the items using the bills. The alert clerk noticed that the bill was counterfeit. He also saw that the subject had a stack of bills in his possession. The clerk confronted the male about the counterfeit bill, and the suspect fled. Sometime during the evening between March 17th and March 18th, the tan and black Ford Expedition seen here was stolen from the Troon Circle area in Davenport. 2 vehicle burglaries were committed during the same time frame in the same area. This video surveillance photo seen here, taken by the Polk Parkway camera, shows 2 suspects who appear to be older teens. The stolen SUV was later recovered in Davenport. On March 22nd, the suspect contacted the victim via Let Go, and they agreed on a purchase price and to complete the transaction in the parking lot of Dunkin' Donuts. The suspect arrived at the location on foot. When the victim showed the suspect the cellular phone, he snatched it from the victim's possession and fled the area on foot. It is possible that the suspect entered into a vehicle. The suspect is a black male, age mid to late 20s, approximately 6 foot, thin build, 160 to 170 pounds, dark complexion, clean shaven, no noticeable scars, marks, nor tattoos. 18-year-old Tavares Cotton, who is from Lakeland and has warrants for grand theft auto, grand theft of a firearm, 3 counts of burglary, and an armed burglary. He's the suspect seen in the video the Polk County Sheriff's Office posted from the Stony Creek subdivision, breaking into cars and stealing a firearm and a white Lincoln Navigator. His crime spree started on March 18th and continued through the 21st. His co-defendant has been charged, but now we need to put Cotton in jail too. Cotton is about 5'7" and weighs about 115 pounds. Here's a recent mugshot that you can see. On April 4th, a resident on Hereford Drive in Lakeland discovered that his vehicle had been entered overnight. We're hoping that you might be able to identify this suspect. If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to the Heartland Crime Stoppers Show. I'm your host, Chip Brown. With us today is Warden John DeBell of the Polk Correctional Institute, and we're talking and learning more about Polk Correctional and corrections in Florida.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the show, John.
Thanks, sir.
Now, as we were saying, I understand that Florida has the third largest prison system in the nation. Is that correct?
We are relatively large. We're talking about 50 major institutions in just about every county in the state of Florida. I've lived for the last 29 years with regards to the statement that the population inside defense is a reflection of what's going on outside defense. So it truly is a mix. We're probably about 96,000 behind the fence and another 140 plus on supervision on the street.
Now, has that population kind of leveled off, or has it seen a decrease, or?
It is seeing a decrease as we're working to try and, and that is inherent to some changes that need to be made that are being talked about in legislature with regards to sentencing reform and changes in that avenue. So the population has declined. There were a number of years, probably 5 or 6 years ago, that we had crested 101, which was pretty large population. But we are third behind California and Texas, quite a large population, with upwards of 29,000 employed with the department.
Now, I know that people obviously see some of the TV shows, and they have a preconceived notion as to what it's like inside a prison, where sometimes they see that it's the inmates running the asylum, and then other times where it's so abusive, that people are dying. But tell us how it actually is inside a facility.
Most of the institutions in Florida are inherent to the population that they house. And what I mean by that is, you've got a number of different facility profiles. Polk is going to house this type of offender, with this custody class range, whereas another facility, maybe in North Florida or Central Florida, has a different custody class, and their missions are different. So being mission specific and housing specific, the inside of the institutions look different. For the most part, Polk CI looks like a college campus with a fence around it. For lack of a better way to say it, the inmates walk freely on the compound. It's organized. Whether they're going from school or to education or to meals or to the canteen or whatever the function is, it's wide open. They're living in dormitories that are open bay and single cell housing. Every institution's got segregated housing for those particular needs, but for the most part, it will dispel every myth that most people have about what it looks like inside the fence.
So they have open dorms at night, they sleep open, or are they in their own, so they're all in one area?
Institutions all over the state have open bay dormitories, much like, military barracks. you know, whether they be in bunks in single rows or double stacked bunks, whatever the situation is, open bay living.
Now, what type of classification of inmates do you have here at Polk Correctional?
We have, and I'm speaking primarily about all 5 of the facilities, but we have everything from a custody class 1, which is those community custody inmates that are able to go outside the gate. Those are the ones that you see working at jobs on the street. If they're at the work camp, they come back to the institution, public work squads, and they go out. But custody classes go from a community to a minimum to a medium to a close. The highest that we're going to house is a close custody, and they're pretty much inside the fence. And that classification system is a pretty integrated system that bears weight to prior arrest history and the instant offense and those things that drive those things. It's a number system for classification. So.
Now, do you house any women here?
No, sir. No, sir. There are only 5 female facilities in the state of Florida. You've got 1 in Hernando, 1 at Lowell, 1 across the street at FWRC, 1 at Gadsden, and 1 down south at Homestead.
Now, as we were talking, you spent a couple years at Lowell, did you not?
I absolutely did. Love Lowell. Spent 22 years at that institution, and that institution was extremely good to me. Had every single mission under the sun. So there never was a need to go anywhere else to learn anything new.
Now, when we talked about it, I didn't to bring it up earlier, but you didn't come into the system as a warden or as a supervisor.
No, sir.
You came in just like everybody else.
Started as uniform security as a correctional officer 1. Again, never expecting to think that this was going to be a career. And the department has been extremely good, worked my way through the ranks, got out of uniform in 2002 as a captain at Lowell, and then went into the classification arena and the program side of the house. So, the department has possibilities and those things for staff that want to do it. It's outstanding employment, and there is a great deal of reward that if people are looking inside the fence and dealing with people. I mean, this really is a people business. I work for a 3-pronged people business. Our product is a person. We've got an obligation to produce a better product, but my stakeholders are people too, and that's the staff that we work with and the public that we serve and those families of the offenders. So it's a 3-pronged balancing act.
Yeah, it really is, like you said, you don't think of it as a people business, but that is your most important weapon that corrections officer would have or a police officer would have. It's going to be their mouth. It can really get them in trouble and it can get them out of trouble.
Absolutely. And we tell new staff, both in training and in a constant interactions on the compound, that your ability to communicate is your best weapon. Because your failure to communicate, your offenders are the best barometer for what's going on the compound. You need to know what's going on. So if you're not out among them and you're not talking and you don't have that developed rapport, it truly is a relationship, because it's such an influential relationship. Staff emerge as a role model and they don't even know it, because the offenders are watching. They're watching they watch how you interact with each other, and they watch how you interact with other offenders. So it's a constant seed planting process.
Now, we had talked about the training and new hires coming in. There is, just as certification for police officers and firefighters and EMTs, there's that certification that is required of a corrections officer.
It is it's quite extensive. We do, we're constantly hiring. I'm very fortunate to have a relatively very low vacancy rate here at Polk. But again, that's inherent to where some of the institutions are planted. Some of them are in very rural areas and some are not. So their accessibility to a market that's going to feed that is something different. But that training piece is huge, because they will come in and we'll do a 120-hour onboarding process to kind of give them some insight and some basic tools to make sure that this is the career that they want to do, and to give them a nice view of that 420-hour, 3.5-month academy that's waiting for them to give them the balance of that skills.
And that's 8 hours a day too. I mean, that is a full-time
It
academy.
is, that is their sole purpose and their sole job when they go to the academy, is to pass that academy and pass that the FDLE CJSTC certification that says they're a certified correctional officer. And it's pretty extensive. They've got 11 written tests and 2 practical hands-on between firearms and defensive tactics. That is it's pretty grueling.
Yeah, that's a long school. I know when I went through the academy in 1975 for police officers, it was only 360 hours, and so that has certainly required more now of what it did for a police officer a number of years
And
ago.
constantly, as the population inside changes, we have to change with it.
Now, you also, besides being the warden here, you also teach at some of these academy classes.
There's something extremely rewarding to watching the light come on. I've been teaching law enforcement and basic corrections recruit for the better part of the last 25, 26 years. Absolutely love it.
That is so important. Like I say, if they're not prepared on the front side, that you can't catch up once you get on the job. It makes it very difficult. So we certainly appreciate all the work that you've done in preparing the officers and corrections officers.
Yeah. And my goal is to make sure that they walk through the gates in the afternoon or the evening or the morning when they're completed, the same way that they came in safe so they can go home to their families. But at the same time, run an institution that is organizationally safe, functionally safe, and humane at the same time.
Yeah, getting the right people for the job are so important, and I'm sure you have a vetting process that you try to pick the best ones.
Absolutely. I mean, they've got to have pretty good decision-making skills, because I like to say there's a fine line between chaos and control. And they've got to be quick on their feet. Decision-making is just absolutely key. We try to be extremely proactive and be able to see things before they happen, to head that off, because it's the ratio on the compound staff to offenders is usually not very good. So they have to have their wits about them, but it has to be something that they want to do too.
Like you say, that decision making, you can diffuse a situation, or you can just, like I say, lose control very quickly by just 1 or 2 words.
Absolutely. I've grown up with the understanding that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can control a situation, doesn't make you any less of a person to be able to talk a situation down. I mean, we call it crisis intervention, to be able to talk a situation down and diffuse somebody that's up here. At the end of the day, we still have control.
It's like I say, it's just so important to be able to do that. It's just, it's a premise that so many people, I think, take for granted.
Sure.
Because it's, as you say, it mimics what's on the outside of the fence. What's inside the fence, of course, is a little, maybe a shorter fuse, and sometimes knowing.
And again, when you're dealing with people, you have to understand human nature and how it works, and you put somebody into an environment that can be chaotic. You don't know how they're going to react. So the best thing that we can teach is, that de-escalation and the ability to solve a situation without, it getting out of control.
Well, Warden DeBell, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your knowledge and your information about the corrections system.
Appreciate it.
We really appreciate it, and what you're doing to get these people re-entered back into society as a working part of it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah. For more information on Florida Correctional Institutes, you can go to their website, fdc.myflorida.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers, and you can reach us on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. And remember, until next time, it's a crime, and you can make sure that they don't get away with it.